Hey everyone, it's Dale from the WebPub class, and I want to begin to talk about CSS. We have a very crude example of a web page here. This was done via hard coding, entering in the HTML by hand. And as you can see, that controls the structure and the content itself. But now we want to start making this look better. We want it to look like a modern website as opposed to something we built back in 1980. And the way we do that is with CSS or with style. So a couple of brief things. What is CSS? It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So again, that adds the style to HTML. And when you use a CSS or a style sheet, it applies to all of the pages on your site. So that's why it's known as cascading, because once you apply it, it then spreads throughout the site or cascades down throughout the site. CSS often goes hand in hand with HTML. So again, HTML controls structure and content. CSS controls the style. So it allows you to be flexible with modifying, customizing design elements. And you can do different things with different parts of your site very easily with CSS. You can apply CSS to a web page or a website you've already made. You can change things like color, typeface, layout. We're going to show you how to put in divs eventually to make your site look modern. You can also use CSS with things like WordPress or Bootstrap or any other type of CMS. So you write a CSS or you write a style sheet in a text editor just like you do with your HTML. Here's a very brief example of a style sheet here. We'll get into this more in just a little bit, but I wanted to show you that this is the most common way to apply style throughout your site. But there are other ways to do so. I'm going to show you a couple of them right here. So I'm going to go to the code that is the behind the scenes of that page that I just had up. The first way to apply style is just simply inside a tag. So for instance, I have this paragraph tag here, and inside the P tag, I'm going to add style equals color, and I have my site as red. So let's make this yellow. And I already have closed out the P tag, so this is just an attribute and a value with style. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now let's go back to our page, and you can see that just this one paragraph has now turned yellow. So if I wanted them all to be yellow, there will be a way I can show you that here in just a minute. But if I wanted every paragraph on all my site, on every page in my site, this would not be the easiest way to do it. Cascading style sheet would be the easiest way to do it. But that is one way to add style to your site. The other way is to add style to the head of your site. So right up here underneath the title, I'm going to use the style tag, and we're now going to begin to attach some style to the P tag here. So when it comes to CSS or style, we use the curly braces to define things. So I need to close the style tag too. Let me do that before I forget. So again, we are applying some style just to the P tags right here. So if I went in and did color equals yellow, now with style, we close sentences with semicolons. So this is now telling it within the paragraph, anything within the paragraph tag, I want the text to be yellow. So if I go ahead and save that, and now go back here, now you can see everything has turned yellow. Again, not difficult by any means, but it is definitely not the easiest way to make a ton of changes to your site style-wise. So that's why we use CSS. So now let's introduce an actual style sheet. I'm going to get rid of these other ways to do it because those are the two less traditional ways of applying style. And now we're going to go the third way, which is actually using a style sheet. And to do that, not only one, do you have to have a style sheet set up. So this is a very rudimentary one that I already showed you. What we're doing here is I've labeled some things that I want, or I've defined some aspects of the body that I want. So the font family, what I'm telling it is, I'm telling the browser, the first font I want you to try is Verdana, and if that user's computer doesn't have Verdana, then try Arial, Helvetica, and then any sans serif. So it goes in that order. I am saying that I want the text to be black. I want the background of the site to be white. I've given a little bit of margin to the left, and I've defined the top as nothing. So we want it to start right at the top of the page, of the top of the browser. Here I've defined some the font size for an H1. I've defined the font size for the paragraph tag, and then I've also gone in here and labeled some and defined some style for our links. So overall, they will be this color, and you can see I've set the text decoration as none. That means the links will not be underlined until you're actually hovering over them. So you can see right here I have underline, and you'll see that I have 3 different shades of color for that particular those particular links. So in order for the HTML page to recognize the style sheet, I have to go ahead and attach the style sheet to that page, and we do that as well in the head. So we use something called the link tag, which here we're just telling it it's a style sheet, and then the type is a text / CSS, and then here's the big one, is the href. Just like in a link, we're telling it where to go find that style sheet. So you can see over here, I've titled this first one style1.css. A link tag is self-closing, so just like that, I would now go ahead and hit save, and we should see some major differences here as soon as I hit refresh. Okay, so all of those kicked in. You can see our font here got quite a bit bigger. Our H1 got smaller, and we changed fonts. Our background color changed, and our font color changed. So now that we've attached the style sheet to the HTML file, we can then go in and begin adding even more customization to our site regarding the style. So as you can see here, again, we have the body already defined. We've got H1 paragraph, and then the link colors and decorations there defined. But let's add a few more things. So I am here inside my style sheet. I'm now going to define H2, and remember we use the curly braces inside CSS, and within that then you're going to have properties, and each property will have a value that defines it. So here I'm going to do color blue, and we end each property line with a semicolon. So now I'm telling it that I want all of my H2s to be the type be in blue, and then I'm going to do font style, and it's not an equal sign, it's the colon, and then we'll do italic. And again, I'm going to close that with semicolon because it's a property line. So again, you'll notice property lines have colons instead of equal signs, no quote marks around the value, and then they end with a semicolon as opposed to another quote mark. So now that I've done that, I need to go back into my index because I don't have any H2s, just to show what that will look like. So let's add an H2 here, and let's just do Dale's conferences. And I've saved both of those, so now we're going to go back, and as you can see here, it's now added this H2. You can see now that I can go in and change that every single time, or make it apply to my entire site because it's part of the style sheet. So that's a brief introduction to CSS. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the layout involving CSS and the role it plays in defining your site and putting things where you want them to be.